Okay.
Okay. We are back with another album analysis. My co-host, Connor.
Hello.
Great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
I've seen you all day. But it's just an advantage of being a roommate.
Yeah.
It's my turn to pick, and I picked Marvin Gaye's What's Going On after a little bit of a discussion about what we were going to do. But I'm happy we're on this album because it is one of my all-time favorite albums, I think, ever.
Mine too, absolutely.
Yeah. What are your initial feelings about Marvin Gaye?
I will say, of course I've heard all the other singles, the classics.
Yeah.
You know, Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
Yep.
And all the other famous singles.
Yeah, the romantics, the duets and stuff.
But it wasn't until this album that I was like, damn.
Change things.
You know.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's my favorite Detroit album, technically, because he's not from Detroit, but he was in Detroit when this was made.
Yeah.
He was, you could tell that celebrity was different a lot back in the 1970s. I mean, he was not, getting stopped on the street because he was a famous singer. He was eyes to the streets, very aware of the situation that was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was recorded mere miles from here.
Yes, mere miles.
Insane.
Motown Museum. Yeah. So cool. Anyways, I'll give a little context to this album. Because it was released in the early 1970s. Vietnam War, Civil Rights Movement, urban unrest with the Watts riot, stuff that happened even miles over here.
Yeah.
He started with romantic music, like you said. He did a lot of duets, a lot of singles that were very just romantic and getting with the girl and that kind of thing. And then this is a concept album here. And we were just talking about first concept album, probably first political concept album.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I feel like people throw around this album, Sgt. Pepper, The Wall. As kind of the first concept album.
The Wall, for sure.
Yeah. And I feel for me, I feel like this one is, out of the three of them, it's probably my favorite.
Yeah, it's the most significant. Yeah. It is so, I mean, maybe The Wall. The Wall, it's actually a toss-up. Yeah. The Wall's really good.
Yeah,
but,
The Wall is really good.
What I also made a note of, last thing, for context, that album cover, though. Because it's a sick album cover. It is a cool album cover.
Yeah, it's definitely iconic.
Yeah.
And that jacket with the
collar up, yep.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's very cool.
It is cool.
So let's start with the first song, What's Going On.
Okay.
What did you think of it?
So obviously this is an iconic, legendary,
the titular track.
Yeah, what even can be said about this song that hasn't been said?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm gonna say it's incredible. And I feel like the question of the song, that what's going on.
Yeah.
I feel like it can be interpreted in so many ways, because it's to me, it's never felt like it's a judgmental question of what's going on. Oh, everything's so terrible. What's going on?
Yeah.
It's this genuine, compassionate question of just what's going on?
Yeah.
You're just asking your pal, what's going on?
Yeah.
And that's with the just sound effects of people talking.
Dude, I had that on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much more just open-ended than a judgmental what's going on.
I agree. I think this song sets the stage for how powerful this album is. I love the people talking in the back. I said that. The bass line, which we'll show.
Yeah.
We'll do a little demonstration with you, but I made a note that, Paul McCartney was really inspired by these bass lines.
Yeah.
What's his name?
James Jamerson.
James Jamerson, yeah.
Okay. Absolutely.
And then Marvin Gaye's voice instantly on this first song, you're like, wow. Yeah. He's kind of like a prophet.
Mm-hmm.
He's mud deep. And who are they to judge us simply because our hair is long? I just love that.
Yeah.
It gives me chills every time.
Yeah. No, okay. I feel yeah. So you mentioned the bass line.
Yep.
as a bass player,
Yeah.
this album is like the one.
It's the one.
Like
I agree.
When
It's
you
crazy.
talk about like electric bass focused albums, this is like one of the ones you talk about because James Jamerson is like he's like the GOAT of bass.
Yeah.
Because his style is so unique and interesting, and yeah, Paul McCartney's like biggest influence in bass playing. Like no one plays the bass like this dude.
Yeah.
And like the sound of it is really specific.
Yeah.
And like as a bass player, like just this song and kind of the first half of the album, because he only plays bass on like the first half of the album.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And like just his style, the way that he kind of makes these like melodies with the bass, because usually, you know, you're just as a bass player you kind of follow the kick drum.
Yeah.
You're playing that lowest note and you're just kind of doing the bottom end.
Yep.
But he's playing like super complex, really like fast melodies, and I'll show you that right now.
Yep.
Because it's a really interesting sound and it's an interesting way of playing, and like the strings he uses are always these flat wound strings and puts foam in the bass to make it really muted, but it's kind of this like, turn it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like it's that like fast.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Like-
keeps you interested.
It's so much more complex than, you know, most people think like,
Yeah.
you know, they think like that really simple.
Yeah, okay.
But that's so much more
Yeah.
complex.
Got it,
And
yeah.
interesting, if you're asking me.
Yeah.
And like, I've always thought that the mix of this album is kind of weird, because like, when you're listening to it, I feel like you're hearing like three things.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I always hear Marvin's voice.
Yep.
I hear like the congas and like the really kind of like subdued drums in the background, and then you hear the bass. Like the bass cuts through in the bottom, but I feel like I've always had like mixed thoughts about like the mixing of the album, because I feel like it's really muddy and kind of hard to make out what certain sounds are. Like he's playing piano on the whole album, and never have I heard piano.
This is a great
Like,
point you bring up.
It's just like it's really like a kind of a bad mix, objectively.
There's different mixes, I know for
Really?
sure. Yeah, there's like a Detroit City mix, which I
Okay.
listen to, and I think it's a little better.
I think the one I've always listened to is just the original.
Okay.
And I just like I'm never able to tell anything apart unless you really listen with like some headphones. You can hear some guitars and like weird percussion and stuff. But like it's weird, and it makes for this like otherworldly, like super like kind of dreamy sound that maybe wasn't intentional, but I feel like it's part of what makes the album unique
I agree.
and interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because I've always thought about the mix too. Because I listen to the other mix. It's like I think it's called Detroit City mix, and it's a lot more bass. There's like bass heavy, and then there's piano and all the instruments in the background.
But I just feel like this album is so unique, because in what other album is the bass like? I feel like it is taking on the most of the instrumental.
Yeah, it's a
melody.
huge emphasis. Yeah. And
It's just, I don't know, I think there's something really special about that.
Yeah, that brings us to What's Happening, Brother, which is, I just said, just the start vocals give me chills. Continuation into the next track. One of my favorite of all times on the album is this song. And then I love War is Hell, When Will It End? Say Man, I Just Don't Understand.
Yeah.
And then this is the one where I was like, Celebrity must have been different, because he feels like he's on the streets.
Yeah. And I think like part of why he wrote this album was because he was like he was sending letters back and forth with his brother or someone who was in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And he was telling him all about it, and that was like part of what inspired it. And like, yeah, you can tell he's just very tuned in.
Yeah, almost too tuned in if you really think about his ending. It's just very sad, but I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always thought that like What's Going On and What's Happening, Brother, like these songs really sound similar.
Yep.
And I feel like you can kind of say that for the whole album. Like, it is a very distinct, like, like kind of quiet. It's not really funky. It's like a weird, like, I do not know how to describe it.
Yeah, I get what
really
you're saying
unique.
though. It's not funky. It's very message direct in your face.
Yeah, and it's like melodramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you got any other points about what's happening, brother? Because we can move on to Flying High in the Friendly Sky.
Yeah, I think it's just like a good segue into the next one. You know?
Yeah, and Flying High, actually re-listening, I felt like very good. Like instrumentation, beautiful song. Gaye's voice sounds like a prophet. Morning will be all right, my friend. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
This one feels like he's speaking to you from like up here.
Yeah. So I think this one is kind of from this perspective of like a veteran who returned from Vietnam, who's like back in where they're from and is like, you know, kind of falling into like addiction, because I think he was dealing with addiction at this time. And you know, that's a really common story for people who come back from the military and all that. And yeah, I don't know. I think this is a kind of a sad perspective, but it's told in this like, it's in this like, it has this guise of like heavenly, like it just feels like you're like floating in the sky, and the bass line, the way it like moves up, and it feels like, I don't know, it feels like you're floating. It's
it
crazy.
did feel kind of like a drug scene, kind of like that's kind of how I felt listening to it. But
yeah,
no, that's great. And then Save the Children, which is very Marvin speaking to my soul. Drums in the back are fire. Save the world who is destined to die. Look at the world, it fills me with sorrow. And then the jazz type ending is sick. It's just, he was in tune, and he definitely saw things before other people saw him. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of reminds me of like the way, like, if you watch like interviews or like you read like quotes and things from like Kurt Cobain or something, like they have this like, you know, and even with Marvin Gaye, they have this outward kind of stardom in this image, but like deeply empathetic people.
Almost too in touch with your emotions can be a little scary. I agree. That's a great comparison. Because Kurt is kind of we could do a Nirvana album.
I would do that.
I would love to do that. God is Love is kind of similar. I wonder if Jamerson did the bass line on this.
I think this is where it switches.
Okay, because it's very similar to What's Happening, Brother. It's almost like the same. And
I can't remember if it's this one or the next one.
It's the most religious I've ever felt. Great message, and I love the focal point on love. Like, I mean, it's cool that he puts it out on here, even when he's in touch with his emotions. He's like, okay, listen, this is at least the way we can kind of solve some things. If it's not going to be the end all be all, but no, I think this one's a great message, and like, I feel like it's like an example of someone using their religion and their arts, and it's like a synergy that really works. They like kind of amplify each other. Nice. Mercy, Mercy Me, those bells, man. Things ain't what they used to be. Fucking fortune teller with the environment. Like he was way in touch with that.
And really, not only with this song, but with all of them. Like, it is just so relevant to today. It's like, what is going on?
I agree. It gave me chills listening. Like, I was so shocked. I can listen to this album so many times, and I'm still kind of like, when you listen to it as an album, you're like, wow. This is an experience.
It's crazy, because I think the first time like I listened to this album, I was in high school. It was maybe like 16 or something, and like, you know, I was just going through like all the like essential albums, and I remember listening to this and like really relating to it and being like, wow, this is like super relevant. And now that was probably in like 2017, and now we're in 2024, and I feel the same way. Even more prevalent.
Right On. I said this one feels like a older Marvin Gaye song. Kind of feels like, you know, he kind of went back, and it's like more of like just a long musical number. It's not as much singing. It's just very much like kind of vibing into the next track. Not my favorite. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't listen to this one a lot, but it's good.
I feel like this one and kind of up until Inner City Blues or like
Yeah,
it
this
kind
one,
of
Holy
enters
Holy.
this like slower kind of darker part of the album where it just feels like this kind of malaise.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a lot more subdued.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
far
because
as-
Holy Holy was very religious, emotional song. I just said, what a beautiful voice.
Yeah.
He's got a great voice, one of the best ever.
Yeah.
I like when he talks on this album too.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's just go to Inner City Blues. Way to end on a fucking heater.
Yeah.
Feels like he has no free will or control. Just a great resounding ending. Maybe of one of the best not political, but just kind of, I guess, political, like message albums ever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like it's so relevant today.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I feel like there are not many albums where it's like
Yeah.
like
stand the test of
100%,
times.
like every single song is just like
Yeah.
like still super relevant.
Yeah. People, I think Rolling Stone rated this the best album of all time. Ever.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a strong argument for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. Like, if someone came to me, I'd be like, okay, you got a great point. I don't know what would be mine.
Yeah.
What songs do you listen to off this tracks, though? Do you like have songs on repeat?
Off this album?
Yeah.
Definitely like the first 3 songs.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've always listened to them. Inner City Blues definitely too. Yeah, I would say all of them except for like those like 3 towards the end.
Yeah.
Those are probably the ones that I don't listen to all the time, but I don't dislike them.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't listen to them all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what else to say.
No, I think we've done a good job. I mean, as best as we can do.
Yeah.
This is, it's like a visceral experience to listen to this album.
Yeah.
Even, like, I remember the first time I listened to it, because I was sitting there, I was like, wow. I think I listened to it when we were in college, freshman year. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, and that just made me feel more in touch with being in Detroit and in the city, as much as I could be.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, final thoughts, I listen to this album a lot. And Marvin Gaye, it's very sad what happened to him. I think he's one of the best voices ever out of the Detroit sound, the Motown sound. I think it's him and Stevie Wonder and Diana Ross.
Yeah. No, it's crazy like what albums you listen to that like, or songs or whatever that stay in the rotation for like years and years.
Yeah.
And a few of the songs in this album absolutely have for me.
Yeah, because if What's Going On comes on in the shuffle, I'm gonna not skip it. I'm gonna sit there and
and it's funny because like I feel like if you listen to certain songs or an album or whatever at a certain time in your life, and then you don't listen to it for a long time and you come back, obviously you get that like wave of nostalgia. But with this album, unfortunately, I feel like that never happens because I've just listened to it so consistently for so long. Like it's just always been with me. You know?
Yeah.
It feels like an old friend.
Yeah. I feel like when I listen to this album, it permanently aged me a little bit. I just felt like I felt something so mature about just like what he was, and I can't relate to Marvin, but it's just, it's beautiful. Yeah. We're not great in albums, but I guess that's our final thoughts on this. Yeah. All right, this has been another album analysis. I never know how to conclude these things. But comment what you want to see next, or it's Connor's pick, but he'll take some influence. You never know. I really liked the bass thing. That was fun.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'll try to come up with like some. Maybe I'll do it some more.
That was some cool demonstration. But all right.